Hello, welcome to episode 76 in the Datapack tutorial series, version 1.21. We're going to be doing data-driven floor crafting. We've done floor crafting before, it is command blocks only, and I thought, well, we'll do it as a Datapack, but to make it more interesting, we'll have it so we can set the recipes up as a list in storage, and then we'll go through the list. So adding a new recipe will be really easy. I don't know how performant this is. I did look using a performance checker. It didn't seem too bad. If you're interested in checking your performance, there's a link in the description to a video on that. And if you want to see the command blocks only version, there's a link in the description to that. Anyway, let's test it out. What does it do? So we'll test out one of the recipes. We'll have a slime block, a stone, and a piece of redstone, and that makes me a redstone block. Or I can use a slime ball, a redstone, and a cobblestone. It makes me an emerald block. So this is going to be based on all recipes will have 3 components, but you could have different counts. So maybe it takes 2 slime balls, 1 stone, and 2 redstone dust. Okay, enough. You've seen what it's going to do. Let's get on and make it now. Okay, we'll start in VS Code with our folders and files like we normally do. So inside function, well, my namespace function, I'm going to create a new folder. I'll call it crafting. And that's when I'm going to put all my little functions. Let's make a new file. We'll have a check.mc function. And we will have a check loop. And a check macro. Okay, and we need to set up the data, so we better have data setup. And we want some effects. We could put the effects in the same file, but I think I'm going to move them out to a different file. So we'll do effects in a separate function. And we're going to use the tick and the load. Okay, I think the first thing we'll do is we'll just do floor crafting with set components. So it'll be like the command block only version. And I'll use check macro for that. And in here, this is going to be the long complicated command. And it is quite a long one. And we're going to need a predicate actually. So I might make the predicate now. We're going to be using the predicate inline. We're not actually going to have a predicate file. So let's go over to misode. And I want a predicate to check for an item that's on the floor. So I think we'll do that. Let's do entity properties. Entity is this. Predicate. Flags. Is it on the ground? We'll set that to true. And we'll also look at the slots. And the slots we're going to look at is contents. And we're going to look for an item in the contents. Let's do string. I'm going to look for I'll look for a slime ball. And I'll put a count, integer of 1. Okay. Let's have a look. Entity property is this. Is it on the ground and is it 1 slime ball? That's okay. Now, because I'm going to be using it in line, not in a file, I am going to settings and go to minify and copy that. And let's just put it back to tab so it's easier to see. I don't think we're coming back here anyway. Right. Let's execute as any entity whose type equals item if predicate. And I'm going to be using line breaks again, like this. So if I have space backslash, it just means the command carries on the next line. And then I'm going to put my predicate. And I'm going to do the little backslash again. It's not happy because this command's not finished. At S. If entity at P, so the player has to be close to it. Distance equals less than 5. Then we will store success into an entity at S, age, which is a short, I believe, short, to 6,000 ticks, which is 5 minutes, which means we're storing 5 minutes into the age of the slime ball if the command is successful, And items despawn after 5 minutes. So this will make the slime ball despawn. And I'll put another one of those. And then we'll also store success entity, if entity, type equals item. And we'll do an NBT check this time. NBT equals, is it big I? Yes, it's big I. It's even telling me big I. ID Minecraft redstone. So that's the redstone dust. We'll give that a count of 1. And in here we also want, not inside the blue ones, outside those blue ones there, we would want on ground equals true. And then we also want a distance equals less than 0.5 and the limit equals 1. And then we are going to store into its age again as a short 6,000. So now what we're doing is we're storing 6,000 into the slime ball's age, so it'll kill the slime ball. And we're also going to store 6,000 into the redstone's age, so that will kill the redstone. And I'm going to copy that line, store success line. Copy. And I'm going to paste it down here. And I'm going to change redstone to stone. I'll keep the count as 1, and everything else is going to stay the same. Yep, that seems all right. Now, so what are we going to do? Then we will summon area effect cloud, and we will store success as a score onto the area effect cloud. Oh, spelled success wrong. Onto its recipe effects. We don't have that score yet, so we'll better add that shortly. We will run. Now this is the command we're running. If this one is successful, then that's when we're going to store the ages onto the items and this onto the recipe effects. And the command will be, let's put it on a new line. Let's get another one of these and split this onto another new line. The command will be loot spawn, spawn at those coordinates, loot, and we're going to have a loot table here. Should we make it ourselves or should we try and misode? Let's go and try and misode. Why not? Let's go to misode. I normally type this myself, so hopefully we can get this right. Let's reset this from whatever that was left on. So we want a pool, and we're going to have 1 role. We're going to have 1 entry, and it's going to be an item. And the item will be redstone block. That is not how you spell redstone. That is very strange. Redstone block. And I think that's it. We don't want any checks or anything crazy. We're just going, nope. And the reason we're using a loot table is because when you spawn with the loot table, it has that little bit of motion. So it's going to add that for us. So let's minify this. Minified. Let's copy it. Copy. Let's go back to tabs. And let's see if we can put that loot table in there. Okay, that seemed to work. Just pasted it straight in. Let's save that. Now, recipe effects, we haven't made that. So let's go off to the load function. And we'll make that score. Scoreboard. Oh, I did spell it right. Objectives, add recipe effects, dummy. Save. Let's go to the tick function because we've got to be checking that. So I suppose we just do function. And we call it check macro. Save. Okay, let's go back. Let's do a reload. So that button there just runs the reload command if I ever do press it. Oh, there we go. Just took a while for some reason. My computer's being a bit strange today. Right, let's try the redstone recipe. Okay, it works, but we had no effects because we've turned the effects off. And we've hard-coded it, so the other recipe isn't set up yet, so this shouldn't do anything. Yeah. If we chuck a stone on top of there, oh, there we go, but it leaves the cobblestone. Okay, so we're working with a hard-coded recipe. That's effectively what we had with the command block series, or the command block episode. Now, let's make it a bit more interesting. So we're going to start again, but we're going to leave that check macro command. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close down all the windows. So we're going to leave this because we're going to edit it. We don't want to type it all out again. So I think we'll start with data setup. And we will data modify some storage. What should we call it? ID data. I always end up using ID data. Why not? Recipe. We'll just call it recipes. Set value. And I'm going to use those little backslashes again. My keyboard doesn't have it, so I have to grab it. It's easier for me to grab it like that. And split this line onto multiple lines. Okay. And this is going to be one recipe in there. Actually, you'll need a comma because we're going to have another recipe after it. Okay. So what this here, just to point out in case these backslashes confuse you, this is exactly the same as if I did this. So that is the same. I'm just splitting it onto multiple lines to make it easier to read. So we're doing a space, we're putting one there, we're going to the end of this bit, we're putting a space, we're putting a backslash, we're going to the end of this one, we're putting a space, we're putting a backslash. That is exactly the same. The reason I'm doing it like that is so I can have each item on its own line, make it a little bit easier. Right, each item's going to need some ingredients. Ingredients, and that will be a little list of ingredients. We'll open and close that. Let's have 3 ingredients. Open and close. Open and close. We'll fill them in a minute. And I suppose it'll have a result. So let's do the result first. Redstone block. There's the result. Now each ingredient will need an ID for the item and a count. So we'll say ID. And it was a slime ball. And we'll have a count of 1. This one will have an ID, and we'll say stone with a count of 1. And this one will have an ID, and we'll say redstone with a count of 1. Okay, so that's a recipe. And now that we've split it up, you can see that each recipe will have its own line. Should we leave it? No, let's do 2 recipes right now. Why not? So what we'll do is we'll grab everything inside those brackets, copy, and we'll just paste it down here, point, and we'll change that result to an emerald block, emerald, and we'll change that stone to a cobblestone. Save. Okay, well let's change the count of something as well. Let's say this one needs 2 cobblestone. Save. Okay, data setup. Let's go to load. Now in load, let's run that function to set up the data. Okay, data is set up. And obviously we've got the scoreboard objective we made earlier. I suppose tick, let's go off to tick. In tick, we don't want to run check anymore. Well, we don't want to run check macro, we want to run check, because there's a few things we have to do first. So we'll run check, and we'll process the effects. So we'll execute at any entity whose type equals an area effect cloud, whose scores equals recipe effects equals 1, we will run function effects. Okay, so in here we can see that we are storing the success. The storing the success into the age is killing the items, but here we're storing a success. So we're going to get 1 stored into recipe effects on our area effect cloud, and that is what's going to be targeted by this. And since we haven't given the area effect cloud a duration, it's only going to live for 1 tick. So it will summon it, it will give it a score of 1. This is going to go, oh, I can see 1. Quick, run the effects at it, and then the area effect cloud is going to get removed. Okay, so that's tick done. Let's go to check. No, not check macro. You go away for now. Let's go to check. And let's just do a say ho. I was going to say hi, but I said ho instead. And let's just do a reload, and it should just be spamming ho. Cool. Let's go back, because that's pretty useless. Right, in check, we want to start getting the data and setting it up to pass on to the macro. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of the data we've got, because we don't want to do any editing to that. We want to keep that data nice and safe. So I'll do a data modify to storage ID temp recipes, and we'll set that from storage ID data recipes. Now we can do stuff to the data in temp recipes, and our ID data recipes will never be touched, so we can call it again whenever we want. And now we're going to pass that data off to an initialization routine. So we'll do a function check loop, and we're going to pass with storage ID temp recipes. Save. So now check loop has access to everything inside ID temp recipes. ID temp recipes is exactly the same as ID data recipes, so it should have access to all of this. Great. Now what we want to do is we want to go through the loop, and each time we want to extract these bits of information for each item as we go through. So let's go off to check loop. Here, let's reset some data. Actually, let's do some little comments. Data reset. Data, we'll call it extract, why not? Data extract. Run the macro to check the recipe, to check. Then we'll remove last element, and run again if still has elements. Okay, now that makes me think, since we're doing the last one, let's go to check function. We should be calling the loop with the last entry in the list. Save. So what we're doing, we are passing the last entry in recipes to the loop function. So we are passing just this one, not the top one, just this one. And then we're going into the loop, and it's going to reset some data. It's going to extract the data from that recipe. It's going to pass that data to the macro. Then it's going to remove the one we just passed. And then it's going to run again, but this time it's going to run with the new last one. Now, since we just deleted this one, the new last one will be this one, and it's going to now go through and check that one. Okay, so let's go into check loop. Did we change this to -1? We did indeed. Check loop. Data reset. That's a nice easy bit. Data remove storage ID temp, and we'll call it components. Now extracting the data. This one's a bit longer. We're going to data modify storage ID temp components. Let's spell things correctly. Components, and we'll say item 1 set from storage ID temp recipes, the last one in the list, and we want to get ingredients, the first ingredient ID. Okay, so the last one in the list, the first ingredient, the ID. So that is the last one in the list, the first ingredient, the ID. So we're going to get slime ball is going to get put in there. Now we're going to do the same and get the count, and then we'll do the same for the other elements as well. So let's get the count. Home, copy, and paste. And we'll call that count 1, I suppose, makes sense. Count 1, and we'll get that from count. Then I'm going to copy both of those. Copy. Paste them twice more because we've got 3 ingredients. This only works with all recipes will have 3 ingredients. We don't want to go crazy and start making it work for recipes with multiple ingredients. We're keeping it relatively simple. And we'll change this to item 2, not item 22. Stop that. Item 2. This will be item 3 and item 3. But we'll have to change where you're getting the information from. 1, 2, 2. Okay, so now we're getting the ingredients. Let's paste another one of these because we need the result as well. And we'll say components.result, set from storage, recipes. Ooh, don't want ingredients now. Result. Save. So what we can do is we can now pass ID temp components to the macro, and it will have access to item 1 and its count, item 2 and its count, item 3 and its count, and the result. So that's what goes in here. Function, check macro, with storage, ID temp, components. And so that's going to go off and do a check, and then we'll remove that last one. So we'll do data remove from storage, ID temp, and it will be in the recipes -1. So you can see why we made a copy of the data and put it into temp, because we're removing it. So if we did this with the actual original data, we would be removing the original data, and it'd only be able to check once, because after it checked once, there'd be no more data to check. That's why we made a copy. And now we need to say, well, if there's still more ingredients or still more recipes in the list, then check that one as well. So we will do execute if data storage ID temp recipes -1, then run function check loop with storage ID temp recipes -1. Save. Okay. Let's check our tick function. Are we calling crafting check? Yes, we are. So I think if we run this now, we haven't changed the original command. Okay, so it still is hard-coded to what it's using. Let's see what happens if we run it now. I'm expecting it to just run twice. Let's have a look, though. Let's do ho, ho, ho. Let's reload that. Can you stop saying ho, ho, ho all the time now, please? Okay, so we drop one of them. We drop one of them. We drop one of them. Yeah, the function's still running. We got 2 of them, so it looked like it ran twice there. Okay. We didn't get any effects, though. So we'll check on that later. First of all, let's do a check on that now. Let's have a quick look. Maybe it's taking too long. Anyway, let's macrofy it first. Right, so we have the information we need stored in item 1, count 1, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to copy item 1, actually. Copy that. And let's go to the check macro. And we will say, you are using data I'm passing to you. Now you're not happy, because nowhere have we specified any data yet. So ingredient 1, let's say that was the slime ball, wasn't it? So we'll say $, open, close, and that was item 1. Let's copy that. Copy, and we'll go off to item 2. So there's redstone. Let's put that in there. We'll say you are item 2. Stone was item 3. Let's put you in there. Item 3. Let's do the count. That little 1. Now you'll want to be count 1. And we'll copy that. And we'll go to the second item. You'll be count 2. And the third item will be count 3. And somewhere where the result is, here it is, Minecraft redstone block. Let's put there. Result. Let's save that. Let's go back, do a reload. Why are you taking so long to reload today? One of them, one of them, one of them. I don't think... Oh, there we go. Certainly worked. Okay, does it work for our cobblestone as well? Now, I can't remember which one of these things we set to 2. I think he said 2 cobblestone. There we go. So that worked. Cool. Oh, all good. Apart from the fact I must have made some silly mistake with our effects. So let's have a look at the tick function. Let's close that down. Let's close that down. Let's close that down. Okay, Mr. Tick. What mistake have we made? We certainly seem to be executing as area effect clouds whose scores recipe effects equals 1 run function. Should we try 1 or higher? Shouldn't have to. Crafting effects. Well, I think I've discovered the problem. We haven't actually made this function yet. Okay, let's have some effects. Oh dear me, that's a bit silly, isn't it? Right, anyway, let's have a look at the tick again a second. We are executing at the area effect cloud. Okay, so we're already executing at the cloud, so we can use a relative position. So we can just do particle. Let's use smoke, I think we used originally, and for this test. And we don't want it, let's lift it up a little bit, just a little bit, 0.2. And let's have a spread of 0.2 on the X, the Y, and the Z. We'll have no speed and a particle count of 100. And it defaults to normal, so we don't have to specify that. And let's have a sound as well, play sound. You know what I'm going to use. Block amethyst break on the master channel for all players at those coordinates. Default volume, default pitch, 0 for the minimum volume. We'll save that. We'll go back to Minecraft. We'll do another reload, which is probably going to take a year because it was a bit quicker that time. And let's try again. Okay, so recipe 1. Nice. Recipe 2. Slime ball, redstone, 2 cobblestone. Oh, they weren't quite close enough together. You've got to get them close. Okay, so that's working. Let's now see how easy it is to add a new recipe. We could go to data setup. We just copy one of these lines. Copy. Bang. Paste it in again. Let's do sand. Grey wool and green wool gives me a nether star. I'm going to forget that. Sand, grey wool and green wool. I haven't got any sand. Need some sand. Should have said sandstone. I could have just grabbed it from the floor there. Sand, green wool, grey wool. Woohoo! Got a bit too excited. There we go. Okay, just updating the floor crafting recipe or tutorial. So we do it in a Datapack instead, but instead of having it hard coded, we now just have data driven, so we can add recipes very simply, providing they all take 3 ingredients. You can change the count of the ingredients, but it does need 3. Cool. I quite like that one. There we go. Right. I'll see you soon. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.